everybody, and welcome back to the SMITE Pro League. Our first of the day is all wrapped up with the Camelot Kings getting their victory, and now we move in to our second set, which is going to be between the Jade Dragons and the Oni Warriors. It's going to be another great matchup. The Oni Warriors coming off of a win last week with the Atlantis Leviathans are looking to continue that streak out here. Meanwhile, the Jade Dragons, with their loss against the Tartarus Titans, they want to try and reprise that and bring themselves back up to a winning record. My name is J-Mac. With me is going to be Trelly here for our second set of the day between these two teams. We got a lot to talk about with these guys here, Trelly. Before we get into that, we'll talk a little bit about the schedule and everything like that, and really how impactful this is. But should be a good matchup between these two teams.
Yeah, I would say so. Both of these teams have a lot to prove, obviously. The Warriors, as you mentioned, taking down the Leviathans, not an easy thing to do, so they're probably riding that high still a little bit, wanting to continue. And the Jade Dragons are probably not too happy with how they've been playing. Decent performance, but they know they can do better. We all know that they can do better, so seeing which team is going to play up to their potential here.
Yeah, really up until the latter half of Phase 3, nobody was able to take down the Leviathans. Oni Warriors are the first team to do so here now in Season 9. Let's take a look at the schedule, though, and see what we have in store for us for the remainder of our week and the rest of what you may have already missed us out, which, as I said earlier, was the Camelot Kings finding a 2-1 over the Solar Scarabs, and now we move on to the Oni Warriors and the Jade Dragons. Tomorrow, though, coming on back, 1 p.m., we'll have the Atlantis Leviathans and the Tartarus Titans, and then after that, the Valkyries and the Warriors will face off. We'll get a second look now at the Valhalla Valkyries team. Same with the Tartarus Titans. Both those teams only had one set last week, and because of that, with the only set that the Valkyries had being a loss, that does put them at the bottom end of the standings here in 8th. Tartarus Titans up until the win with the Camelot Kings, just by nature of 2 versus 1 on the win column. Camelot Kings will now sit at the top with the Tartarus Titans right below them. But the Oni Warriors and the Jade Dragons, even though it's that 3rd and that 5th seed, it's 1-1 for both of them. The reason Jade Dragons sit a little bit lower is because their loss and their win were both 2-0s in that instance here, whereas the Oni Warriors went the full distance in both of their sets, up against the Bolts and up against the Leviathans, taking it all the way to 3, and arguably winning probably the first time I think I've ever seen a set where you only need to win 2. They basically won 3, but by technicality, they did end up losing one of those games.
Yeah, the Oni Warriors seem to like playing for this very, very late portion of the game. Not just late portion of the game, the very, very late portion of the game where they want these games to go 40 minutes plus. And once they get that online, their team fight just looks pretty spectacular, I would say.
Yeah, the late game is really where the Oni Warriors have taken many of their matchups. First against the Olympus Bolts. I mean, they had games that went all the way till 35, 40 minutes in. Same against the Leviathans. The Oni Warriors were dragging these games all the way through and dragging their opponents through the mud the whole way down. A lot of action to start out into the duo lane. The solo lane, where we see Nika really start to shine and pop off here, has been a real shining hope for the Warriors. But Cubo Fred was kind of the original topic of conversation last week. When Cubo Fred really shows up and pops off, the rest of his team was able to follow suit. And up in their last set against the Leviathans, Cubo and Nika were both able to step up and really make it work.
Yeah, I would say, as you mentioned, we touched on this a bit on the desk, but whenever Cubo is able to find success, the whole team looks solid. But Nika always has this carry presence available where he has so much damage late game. He's able to get to the back line pretty freely and is always, I would say, even or ahead in lane, at least in these past 2 matches. So Nika's definitely been a strong presence for this Oni Warriors draft, as well as whenever Cubo is hot, the whole team looks solid as well.
And even just talking about Nika, I mean, this man has gotten more multi-kills in just this first week than so many other players in the league get over the course of their history. I mean, I think he picked up like 3 triple kills just last weekend alone between Camazotz and Kleena. And Nika is really able to put up some big numbers for his team here. Over into this mid lane, Dardes with another one of those eclectic kind of mid-god pools out here. He'll play What's the Meta. He'll also play some of the Stranger Things, and he'll even bring back some of what we were seeing in Season 8. This AMC seems to have kind of risen itself back up here for these mid laners.
Yeah, we have definitely seen a fair bit of the AMC mid, just crazy amounts of pressure, as well as that late game shred potential, as we've seen time and time again. But also, Dar's looking very solid on the Morgan. Usually, we like to harp on these Morgan players having 1 or 2 just, you know, kind of crutch transformations that whenever you see that pick, you're like, oh, maybe I could turn to the Morgan here. But Dardes making use of the entirety of the map, sometimes going into the Camazotz for some safety, but also using the Horus ult to engage and disengage with his team. So you can never know what you expect from that man.
Yeah, and that on-the-fly decision-making has really been able to elevate Dardes here in this mid lane. But talking about the mid lane and who's going up against, on the side of the Jade Dragons now, talking about this team here, Pagon, the newest member of this Jade Dragons roster, now the 3rd mid laner in 3 years that these guys have been through. They had Captain Twig a couple years back, then they had Hurrywin, and now moving on towards Pagon, who probably has one of the wider god pools amongst the carries that they've been able to pick up towards that role. Pagon has been showing off a masterclass of how many different gods he's willing to play out. I think during the promotional tournament that we had a couple of weeks ago, he had like 7 or 8 different gods in just as many games here. On the opposite side, we've seen very little out of PandaCat. He really has just been going towards this Uller every time he can.
Yeah, I was going to say, if you see any sort of highlight from PandaCat, it's probably going to be on this Uller pick. I mean, he just either, because during the very first tournament of the year, we talked to him in the interview, and he said, you know, I just like Uller. I don't want to reveal the strats. Well, guess what? The SPL is upon us. It's time to reveal the strats, and PandaCat still is just playing Uller. So I think it's more so he just likes playing Uller right now. He likes getting pressure in lane. He's the type of ADC who wants to take these 1v1 fights, and he's going to continue to do so.
Yeah, so far he has pretty much only shown off this Uller, maybe one or two other small little picks as season win. I think he had an Artemis at the end of the promotional tournament there, so we haven't seen a whole lot of different gods out of PandaCat, and maybe that also just comes down to not many teams want to expend a ban on Uller. It's not like we're seeing, you know, what was it, like season 4 or so Uller, whenever he was like the top god to pick no matter what, and then you definitely want to ban it. We're kind of in that era right now where you can kind of just let almost any hunter go through. I mean, we talk about how often Medusa is at the top of the standings for these hunters, how many times she's picked, but nobody seems to want to ban her away. Before we go a little bit further in, we do have a small little interview and a nice little video put together to talk about a couple of the players on these teams.
We're very proud, I think, of like how our week one went. Obviously, we dropped the set to Bolts, but even like looking back at it, we felt like we should have just 2-0'd that if we cleaned it up. And I'm just glad that we, you know, came into Levi's and it felt like we won all 3 games. You know, obviously the backdoor was just like one slip up the whole set, but I think it's like a relief that the hard work we've put in already is like showing off.
I think the weekend was fine. I don't think any of us were happy with the second set. I think we just got outdrafted the first game against the Titans, and then the second game was kind of back and forth a bit, and we just had one really awful fight, which you can just lose a game off one bad fight. So game 2, not as upset about. Game 1, just really bad draft though.
We know we still have a lot to work on. It's just one win. It doesn't matter who it's against. Obviously, it feels better because it's against like the best team in the league still. But we know that we need to stay consistent with our communication, our map play, and our drafting as well.
I think going into week 2 versus the Warriors, we're mainly just going to look to continue cleaning up the way we want to play. I think the Titans were a little bit more cohesive in their strategies than we were, so I think probably just continuing to adapt to Pagon and figure out our god pools and our pick priorities and what type of comps we want to build. That's really the main thing.
I don't think the Dragons are going to be too different to what we've already seen. I think Pagon is a switch up to like the style of mid laner they've had already. But ultimately, I think they'll be a very similar team. And I feel like we won't be too surprised at what they have to show us.
I think normally Nika is the best performing player on the Warriors, at least the most consistent for sure. It's kind of odd because we haven't really played them in a setting where they're not on bad ping. They only got here at the end of last year and we didn't play them. So it's almost like playing a new team, honestly. I think Dardes has historically been their best player, but like I said, I haven't played against him on ping in like 2 years now, so.
I think the key player on the Dragons is usually whichever side laner they decide to play through. Sometimes it's Fine, sometimes it's Panda. So overall, I'd say just like keep an eye on either one of those, just based on how the Dragons draft. I'm super confident that we can take them convincingly, no worries.
I think we should 2-0 the Warriors fairly easily if we play well, but who knows, they're definitely a good team and they're also a very scrappy team in the late game, so who knows.
Confidence in both of them, thinking that they can grab 2 O's against the opposition, but there was the caveat there. It's if we play our game, if we can play well here. And so far, we've seen a little bit of that back and forth between both these teams. The Dragons struggled up against the Tartarus Titans. The Warriors struggled throughout the majority of their weekend, especially that very first set they played up against the Bolts, but we've seen that improvement now, the Warriors. And I think a comment that Mike made in that interview specifically, Charlie, is one I kind of do want to hit on. It's one that we talked a lot about with this team and the Kings specifically, has been this is one of the first time that these teams are facing off against each other where every player is now here, where nobody is going to be playing on ping. And I think Mike makes a great point here, saying that it's basically a completely night and day difference of teams when you're on ping versus not.
Yeah, I would say so. Mike pretty much just said, hey, 2-0, 2-1 if I'm trolling. But either way, he's historically went down to say that. But anyways, yeah, I'd say right now, as you mentioned, Pagon, this team is going to have to adapt to his play style. They mentioned that in the interview as well. I think Nika said it was right to point out that it's a similar style, but they have to sort of adapt to what Pagon brings to the table because with these new picks comes a new play style. Obviously, Pagon has a wide god pool, and they have to say, hey, we know what you're going to play, but how do we adapt to that? And that's going to be the question. How quickly are they able to do that?
Yeah, we'll see how quickly both these teams adapt to each other's drafts and each other's play styles, picks and bans for game number 1 between the Oni Warriors and the Jade Dragons, our second set here of the day on this lovely Friday out here in Alpharetta, Georgia. First ban is going to be that RDO. Maybe surprising that it's in the first ban column here, though, out of the Oni Warriors. I mean, this is a god that has seen a lot of success over in that soul lane over the last few months of competitive play. Usually, though, reserved for kind of more of that second ban spot to make sure to take that god away, though.
Yeah, it just seems like right now RDO's bringing too much pressure into that lane, and if Nika doesn't want to first pick it, they just say, hey, let's get rid of it at this moment. So that is going to be the first ban. Obviously, Camazot's Kalina, nothing out of the ordinary there, I will say. Pretty solid solo picks, and as we mentioned, the Oni Warriors, you got to watch out for Nika in that lane, and both of these characters are going to be very solid. Daji, though, a ban that we've been seeing from pretty much everyone, usually as we mentioned a few times, a solid pick into these non-CC immune carries, things like that. But right now, Daji just looks so much pressure that you don't even want to gamble with letting it through at this moment.
No, not at this point. I mean, it's something that Mifflin and I talked about a little bit earlier, where he said it's basically kind of a safer Ares pick by way of that Pal Lao. So it seems a lot of teams are putting a lot of value on that god as of now. But it's mostly just gonna be some shots over here at the Oni Warriors solo laner, like you said, with this Camazotz and Kalina, both gods that Nika has been performing on well. The Krabraken, while maybe not necessarily to Nika, a god that Cuvo Fred has really been finding success on here for this Oni Warriors draft. But that does leave open the Zeus on this side, and the Oni Warriors are going to make sure that the mid laner Pagon doesn't get that. How do you feel about a first pick Zeus, Trelly?
I'm liking how much pressure, I mean, not only pressure, but how much stock people are putting into this Zeus pick right now. I was questioning, will Zeus be able to survive in these high-pressure games where you're drafting things like the Gilgamesh, like the Erlong, obviously got out of the way this time, but the Gilgamesh, really a character that can get on top of your mid laner pretty easily. It's hard to peel that, but honestly, Zeus has been able to self-peel himself with the hybrid build or the full damage build. As long as you're not letting your Zeus die consistently, and a Khepri will do just that, you're sitting pretty in that lane. So I would say I like the Zeus first pick, but the answer back from the Jade Dragons, Medusa, very highly contested pick right now. I believe played 14 times was the statistic there, and the Gilgamesh, a ban that is usually taken away. So pretty strong answer back for the Jade Dragons.
Yeah, it's no surprise on Medusa. We've been seeing heavy priority on that god for the entirety of the SPL, even into the SPL kickoff, and even further back when we start getting to the qualifier stages for these ones. But she still seems to make her way here into this top spot. Pair that with the Gilgamesh and a Thoth for the Jade Dragon, so Pagon will get a more traditional mage this time around to take that lane. But Bologna Khepri on the side of the Warriors, when we saw last set how up against the Camelot Kings, no team, or at least in this instance, the Scarabs did not want Genetics to have that Khepri. But how do you feel about the Khepri here as a third pick on the side of the Warriors?
Yeah, like I said, I think if you're able to keep this Zeus alive, it's just going to bring so much magical damage. The Khepri, one of the best peel tools in the game with Scarab's Blessing, obviously. If your Zeus is just going to be immobile, if he's just going to die, if he's in the Winds of Smosh, getting sniped by a Final Judgment, something like that, just say, hey, I'm going to revive you off this big burst damage. So as long as you're able to keep Darius alive, as long as he's able to position himself well, I think the Khepri's going to, just be very nice for this comp.
Well, it should be a good one here. First ban, or second round of bans, I should say, coming out here. Nemesis and Fenrir for the Jade Dragons. Meanwhile, a Yemoja ban on the side of the Oni Warriors. Now with that Khepri locked in, they're free. That being the Warriors, able to ban against PBM specifically. But then an Odin into the mix here. That kind of throws a little bit of a curveball here, Charlie, because Odin has not been seeing a whole lot of play by just about anybody on any of these teams here. Why the sudden Odin ban here out of the Warriors?
I will say when I was doing the tier list with SOT, I don't want to give too much of that away. He put a lot of stock into the Odin pick. He said right now, with the characters that are in the meta, the cage still shuts them down pretty hard. Looking at a Zeus, for example, even the Khepri, getting trapped in that cage makes you adhere to that playstyle. Even though Phantom Shell is a thing, and even though you can break the cage, you still don't want to try to play around it. So just not wanting to deal with that amount of pressure, not wanting to deal with the, hey, I'm forced into Phantom Shell because of my draft. Odin just brings a little bit too much for these immobile mages in the mid lane.
As the picks come back through, King Arthur is another pick that we have not been seeing a whole lot out of here. And with the rise to the Bluestone, it only makes sense that this god would eventually find his way here into the meta. But King Arthur up in that soul lane matchup versus Bologna, so we're seeing the very tried and true ability style warrior in King Arthur versus this more hybrid or so more auto attack focused Bologna on the opposite side here for the Warriors. How do you feel about that matchup, Charlie?
Yeah, I think there's a reason that King Arthur is not getting picked right now, and it's because of it's just very easy to cripple out his dashes with things like the RDO that are in favor right now, stuff like that. Obviously, you don't want to trade auto attacks with the Death's Toll Bolognas of the world with Berserker Shield, but Final K loves him some King Arthur. I mean, if you can find pressure, if you can get to that late game stage where you constantly have your full power ult charged up, you can find lots of success, especially on the picks like Zeus. So this is very much a can I survive in lane until late game sort of draft from the Jade Dragons. You do have some early pressure, obviously, with the Gilgamesh. Medusa's going to win lane pretty freely, that sort of thing, but Is King Arthur going to get camped? That is the question.
That is the question at the end of the day here. Jade Dragons, with their final pick, are looking at Bacchus at the moment, a god who has been seeing a lot more priority now that the SPL has finally kicked off here. Players like Neilma really love to go towards this pick, but we'll see him on the Khepri this time around. Hunbats and Cernunnos. Cernunnos, we've talked a lot about him, about how he's kind of in that second tier, or maybe even that first tier, right up there with Medusa, between Cernunnos, Medusa, and then like Heimdall. We kind of have that three of the hunters at the top end here. But Hunbats is one that we don't really get to see a whole lot of here. And with all the nerfs that have come to that ultimate, we've been seeing players favor him maybe a little bit less and less just for how long that cooldown is. But on the opposite end of the board here, Jade Dragons, they go away from the Bacchus entirely. Ares as a final pick here, Charlie. Tell me a little bit about this Ares pickup.
I mean, to me, they banned the Daji. They said, hey, we're going to draft a lot of characters with no CC immunity. We have Zeus, we have Khepri, we have Hunbats, and we have Cern. All of these characters do not want to get chained. All of them do not want to get ulted by the Ares. I mean, the Daji is what I was going to say, but now they have the Ares. You have Daji, which is a safer Ares, but Ares still a solid pick in its own right. Going to get some easy pressure with that Medusa against the Khepri and the Cernunnos. I would say if you're hitting your chains consistently, which we know Polar Bear Mike can do, you're going to have pretty much unlimited pressure in that duo lane. Unless, of course, you get like abducted or something before your chain comes up. But either way, I think right now the Jade Dragons are going for that early damage, trying to get online early in that duo lane.
And this is something about the Jade Dragons, though, that we've seen in the last couple of sets they've played up against the Titans and the Scarabs. They always seem to draft this very early execution style of draft here. You know, they pick up things like Kleena over for Sam in a couple of those ones. They get Uller, who's really a heavy bully when it comes to that laning phase. But the Jade Dragons haven't really capitalized on the early game. They play the first 15 minutes out as this just farm mode, and it's not like they're power farming either. They're not pulling these 5,000 gold leads up at any point here. So, Charlie, I got to ask you, where do the Jade Dragons make their mark to maybe try and start this early game going?
It's got to be the mid lane. You have Thoth outranging the heck out of Zeus in that mid lane. You have Gilgamesh, who can easily gank the Zeus. I would say try to get Pagon ahead on this Thoth pick and try to say, hey, you're going to outrange the heck out of Dardes. Let's put as much damage with the Hieroglyphic Assault. Let's look for these big final judgments that we can before the Khepri rotates over. I think your early pressure is going to be pretty much unlimited unless you fumble early game.
And then the Oni Warriors over here, a team that's been going more towards the late game. So they're fine giving up the early game. And maybe here against the Jade Dragons, they're fine if the Dragons want to wait 15 to 20 minutes before these team fights come through. But as much as we talk about, you know, being able to gank the Zeus here out of the side of the Jade Dragons, what's the answer back then for the Oni Warriors? Where do they find their success in the matchup?
I mean, I think late game they're going to be just fine. Of course, Hunbat's one of the best team fight ultimates in the game. If you are playing around it, which we know Kivo can hit them very consistently, you're going to have a solid team fight no matter what. On the other hand, you still have this Zeus that you want to try to keep alive as much as possible. So as long as Neilma has his hand on that Scarab's Blessing and is ready to hit the reses on clutch targets, I think they're going to be just fine, even if they want to say, hey, we're going to give up a little bit of early pressure in that mid lane, but besides that, our team fight's going to remain solid.
Well, it's going to be the Oni Warriors something against the Jade Dragons here in our second set of the day. Both these teams currently 1-1 in the standings, and both of them trying to make their mark to get that second win. Which team's going to find their second win? Well, we always got to start somewhere slow, and our first stepping stone is going to be game number 1. That's going to be with David Mifflin.
Game number 1 between the Jade Dragons and the Oni Warriors. Also, technically, my game number 1 of Season 9 here in the SPL. And what a way for me to start off my year, Miff. Oni Warriors up against the Jade Dragons.
Way to make it about you, man.
Everything's about me, Miff. It was my birthday last. Wish me a happy birthday. You didn't do it.
I
didn't
literally
do it in person.
texted you.
Yeah, not in person. Wish me a happy birthday.
Happy birthday. You took the week off. How was I supposed
Wish me a happy birthday.
Happy birthday.
Thank you. Oni Warriors versus the Jade Dragons, Miff. I think last year, you look at this matchup, and this is one where you heavily favor the Jade Dragons. And I still think you might favor the Jade Dragons in this.
Are you saying you like me or you royal
you? The general you.
I got it.
I think would favor the Jade Dragons over the Oni Warriors last year. I still think you might a little bit, but the Oni Warriors in week 1 showed us there's still some growing to be done for this team, all together on LAN, all living together or in the same state at least, getting to play together in studio. And so I think that this matchup nowadays is a lot closer than it has been in seasons past.
Yeah, I'm really excited, man. Specifically, I brought it up earlier on the death segment with J-Mac. I feel like the duo lane, one you really want to keep your eyes on, especially now that PBM's playing a pick like Ares, right? This aggressive space control pick that's got great CC against a composition that has very minimal CC immunity. This could be a lane between Ares and Medusa if they pull a lead, where how do you fight back into that? What do you do? These are both high kill pressure gods with a ton of damage.
There you cry, I guess, if they get out ahead. Mike already on point with the chains, throwing those out. And how about Vote's pick here in the Cernanos? I'll hold that thought. Sam for soccer sends a gank Nika's way. Down to half HP is Nika. Sam and Fino both taking a little bit of damage of their own as well. Body blocks are good for Mike here. Panicat just needs a couple more auto attacks. Shell gets used. Might not have been needed, but good insurance policy there for Neoma. You call it, Myth. There's aggression early on here from Panicat and PBM.
So we lose the bees on Vote, you lost the shell, and you might lose Dardez's life here.
Sam is active everywhere. One more auto is in, and Sam for soccer grabs first blood. The desk calls it perfectly. You can get the beads off of Dardez. The range advantage is there for Pagon. And Sam for soccer will snag first blood over the Zeus.
That was a super late beads from Dardez, though. Like he allows Sam to get one, maybe two auto attacks before that CC immunity really starts to get him out of there. I mean, dropping it that late because as an aggressive pick, as Gilgamesh, a little bit slow on the uptake. The Oni Warriors mid lane, and the Jade Dragons will strike first, and Sam for soccer on an aggressive early game pick with now an entire level lead does not bode well for the Oni Warriors. What was it that Trelly said on the desk? Infinite pressure for the Jade Dragons?
And that's a hefty statement to make.
It's like that's like more than you can quantify.
Well, Pagon has the range advantage, as Trelly pointed out as well.
Wow, Trelly's good.
Dardez just wants his red buff here. Won't be able to get it. Not while Pagon is around the corner watching. Pagon has not only the one level, but the one assist lead over Dardez, who is going to have to hope that Pagon isn't lurking behind the red buff wall, but he's not. Pagon's headed back towards his own red buff. As Nika receives some help from Kivo Fred on the right side of the map. On the Oni Warriors blue buff. Fino K over on the right side of the map, Myth, going up against Bologna, who's been a very popular, oppressive pick at times. On the King Arthur, though, not a pick I expected to see here today. It has been out of the favor of a lot of solo laners here as of late, though in capable hands can take over team fights.
Yeah, Doug, can we get a look at the level priority on Nika just to see where he is putting his points?
Or
Likely
Fino.
gonna be Scourge. I'm
Okay,
thinking that he's
Nika.
maxing out first, and it is, because you're not allowed to use Bludgeon in this matchup. That consistent knock-up from Fino K, always gonna cancel out the second portion of that ability. You've also got the ultimate to do the exact same thing. Two versions of the ultimate at that. I think a very interesting lane to be sure.
Fred is here, and Fred has Fear No Evil. Panda has beads, and Mike has Blink. Dash away from Panda. Root in onto Mike. Lots of CC connecting. Should be a kill
No way.
here.
Okay.
And Vote hits the final auto, and the Oni Warriors on the board. And it's Vote with the assistance of Kivo, Fred, and Neoma. No chance for Mike there with no ultimate, and I'm not sure the ultimate would have made a difference anyway. Sam considering a regank. Panda a little bit behind here. Doesn't have ultimate. That's a clean kill for the Warriors.
It is. The Oni Warriors needed some pressure somewhere on the map, and finding in the duo lane, definitely worth it. That was a heavy commitment. I'd argue you probably don't even necessarily need Fear No Evil, at least at that portion. If you use Abduct on top of Fear No Evil, the fear just does not apply. Abduct overrides that CC.
Man, I'm already scared of being abducted. I don't care about the evil, right?
Okay, all right, man. What? I don't even get that. I don't even get that one.
Well, yeah, the fear's not going to apply from Fear No Evil because I'm already being abducted. I'm terrified of that.
All right, I am with you now, and now I can say qualified that was a bad joke.
Now that I understand it, I can tell you it sucked. Fair enough, Myth. I know. It was garbage. At any rate, a heavy commitment of ultimates from Kivo Fred, but gets the kill nonetheless. And while it comes back off of cooldown, is really the loss of potential of using that ultimate elsewhere on the map. But both junglers have been active early. And how about this selection from Fino K, Myth? Maybe worried not only about Nika, but Kivo Fred sending some pressure his way. That's an early first item sovereignty for Fino.
It is. Fino K going to get a fair deal of defense from it. Doesn't really want to take the 1v1 up against Nika too often because of all that sustain. Nika's got built in already. Death Toll plus Scourge means that the majority of trades probably going to favor Nika at this portion of the game. Also has got the Chalice of Healing. So even potions favoring Nika for the most part. Fino K instead says, hey, I'll just simply double dip on defense. Not only is it going to make him more survivable in his lane opponent, but also Kivo Fred playing a physical jungler going to have a much harder time ganking.
Fino K can still do a little damage over towards Nika. Full rotation will chunk down that health bar to about halfway. So now we've seen Vote exert a little bit of pressure on this Cernanos. I wonder how this starts to transition later on in the game. I feel like we have plenty of data on Medusa and how mid to late game starts to look on this pick. I mean, Cern's a hunter. You get enough items online, you're going to do a lot of damage. But in these team fights, positioning is going to be so important here for Vote. Do you have high expectations, high hope for the Oni Warriors duo win?
I do. I feel like Cern has just got a really good matchup into Medusa. That Bramble Blast now having the cripple on it makes it so much harder for that god to work.
Polar Bear Mike blinks in. Ultimate. Cubo Fred uses the beads, but Neoma unable to avoid it. Gets pulled in and then sent back once more. That's a big burst of damage from Pagon. Fear No Evil drops down, and it's big from Cubo Fred.
Whoa.
Then sudden 2-kill swing, and the Jade Dragons have none of them. Oni Warriors turn this one around. And the Fear No Evil is ridiculous. Cubo Fred helps the Warriors turn 2 kills.
So I said earlier that I think that Khepri's going to fit into literally every single draft. That's why. It was a heavy commitment from the Jade Dragons to shut down just about anyone. They could have chose anybody. Didn't even necessarily need to be who it was. And Neoma's just going to revive him regardless. And then you've just got this space control from Dardes behind him. You just got the re-engage potential from Cubo Fred. You've just got more CC from Vote. Large AoE circles are the name of the game for the Oni Warriors. And it's working out heavily for them so far. That said, 3-1, Golden Experience a little bit deceptive.
Yep, yeah, we're dead even here 7 minutes in despite the kills being there for the Oni Warriors. Now the experience has started to trickle up just a little bit, 1.3K for the Oni Warriors. That translates roughly to a level here or there, depending on what parts of the map you're looking at. Support and jungle currently have those leads. Nika ganked now by Sanford Soccer. Ultimate already used by FineOK. Nika has the Eagles rally if necessary. Wasn't necessary, as Bologna continues to be obnoxious. So we haven't seen these solo laners rotate out just yet, Mifflin, but I think both of these solo laners in their own right, especially on these styles of picks, are going to be a lot of fun to watch. Yeah, it's typical of Panda Cat, isn't it? Are going to be a lot of fun to watch in how they control these team fights. I mean, Nika's been so important to this Oni Warriors roster over the last couple of years. FineOK, so important to this Jade Dragons roster over the last couple of years. And these two styles of picks, I feel like, just synergize with their play styles very well.
And they're both going to be going for the exact same style of play once the team fight starts to roll around. FineOK is going to try his best to close gap on a Dardes and continually find pressure on him. Does have an interesting interaction that we might see from the Jade Dragons in that FineOK can remove one player from the playfield for about 2.5 seconds with that fully charged ultimate. Could be that he tries to just kill somebody with it. It's very hard to apply Revive in those situations. Or he could use it essentially as a banish to make sure that Neoma can't use Scarab's Blessing himself. Similarly, Nika going to be diving the backline for the most part for his team, but it's going to be a lot easier for him in that he's diving a Thoth, whereas opposed to FineOK diving a Zeus. Zeus can just turn around those fights very easily on his own. The difficulty of diving Thoth is just getting to the Thoth.
Yeah. Maybe this is expected, and I'm glad you bring up Thoth for Pagon. 2 levels ahead of Dardes right now. Though Dardes has the extra kill, that one death maybe making a difference. And the ranged advantage not only benefits the early game poke and maybe some fighting that the Jade Dragons made happen around the mid lane, but has also helped Pagon farm up safely, grab a couple extra mid camps, put pressure on Dardes in moments like this. He's just back and trying to grab up that red buff, but that's something to keep your eyes on if the Jade Dragons can continue to play around that mid lane. And really, it's the left side of the map right now where the Oni Warriors have a little bit more pressure. 3 assists on 3 kills for the Oni Warriors and for Neoma. Chains are out onto Vote, who has beads. And that's always the question. Is one set of beads worth the ultimate? Seems to be. Out of range advantage. Pagon doesn't have ult. Doesn't have a lot of health. Must have just taken a big old chunk of damage out of Dardes, who does not have Aegis ready to go just yet. The Jade Dragons mid laner widens that gap.
Sanford Soccer was nearby, but I'm looking at the assist column, and he does not have one.
Yeah.
So that must have just been Pagon doing it to Dardes all on his own. Dardes still has ultimate, just does not use it. This is an early tier 1 tower.
Won't go down, though, as Cubo Fred is close. We'll go down here eventually, Mifflin. Have to imagine, and we'll not have to imagine much longer, as a replay of Pagon's solo kill. Maybe just around the corner, what we're assuming is a solo kill. I've called it a solo kill, so now it has to be, right? Sam is close.
No way.
Yeah. Yeah way. You just hit everything and then a final, and a final judgment. I don't know if he had Spear of Deso completed at the time or not.
He did.
But double flat pen early into a Zeus without Aegis. I mean, if you hit everything, Myth, and Pagon hit everything, that's the potential it brings.
Yeah, those are the most awkward moments to try and break down analytically because he hit everything
Right,
is
hit
the full
everything,
extent of it. Just shouldn't have been standing there, I suppose, for Dardes, or maybe even potentially.
Trelly is looking smarter by the moment.
Yeah, dude.
Talking about the range advantage and how Pagon's going to have unlimited pressure.
All right, well, here's the thing, man. Dardes could have beadsed. Like, he could have just beadsed the route and walked
Yeah,
away.
you're right.
He did not.
You're right.
So, Trelly's, he's all right.
He's all right.
He's okay.
So Dardes could have done more, but
Yeah.
Pagon literally couldn't have done more. Hit everything. The potential that Trelly set up came to be is the point I'm trying to get at here. And so Dardes falls a little bit further behind. Luckily, just about a level and a half. Make it 2 levels. Now as Pagon looks like Myth is going to go into the Soul Reaver, and we learned earlier on today that Soul Reaver on Thoth is a fine item to have in back-to-back games. Vote drop kicked against the wall here. Sanford Soccer up downs the ultimate. And just some pressure put out. Looks like Vote was able to drop his own purple buff at least. Though Sam made life uncomfortable for a moment.
And that's Sam's job, essentially, on this pick, especially going for a slightly more bruiser style of build. Berserker Shield in that 3rd slot. Seems to have picked up a Kusari from his quest item, so a little bit of free magical defense and never hurt anybody. Certainly will help out up against a Zeus, as the Tier 1 mid tower will fall down. The Jade Dragons have got pressure across the board, and it's reflected in the economy of this game so far, but no neutral objective attempts from either team, which is surprising 12.5 minutes in. Would think that both squads have got pretty decent ability to look towards these objectives. I would say the Oni Warriors probably favored on fighting on the right side of the map, whereas the Jade Dragons should be favored taking engagements on the left-hand side just because of having that superior secure and range advantage from Pagon, the burn potential of Panda Cat or Sanford Soccer, 2 auto attackers. Got to think Gold Fury on the minds of the Jade Dragons.
Wow.
Soon, at least.
It's 3 levels now, Pagon over Dardes.
It's a lot.
It'll be 2 here eventually. I imagine Dardes is pretty close to level 13. But there's also a decent little gap in the jungle. Cubo Fred ahead of Sanford Soccer. When you're making 3-man Fear No Evils happen, you're bound to build yourself a bit of a lead. That is that's the most lackluster end to a 3-man Fear No Evil that I've ever seen. It was just an attempt on the red buff, but how about this? A 1v1 over on the left side of the map will pick up the pace a little bit. Vote doesn't end up dying, but there's a Scarab's Blessing there just in case. And unreal. How unsatisfying for us. We get a 3-man Fear No Evil and no kills. Nearly a solo kill that's turned around. These teams are looking for blood, but no blood has been spilled.
Beads and Aegis lost for Vote, and the Scarab's Blessing go down for Neil. So that could be time for the Jade Dragons to strike yet again, especially considering you got 2 minutes to play with until Vote gets those defensive relics back. And well, no CC immunity in the kit means that Polar Bear Mike is likely staring him down. If Mike can just connect his own ultimate onto Vote, Vote will just die. Worth noting, I would argue Panda Cat essentially just 1v1s him there. You got to give credit over with that TKO.
Yeah, absolutely. And that means, Smith, you're correct. There's an advantage around the Gold Fury. Oni Warriors take the Pyro, and this is often the trade. Realizing that a fight on this side of the map would not bode well for the Oni Warriors. The Warriors grab what they can, and it's the Pyromancer. Though the concerning trend is, Myth, although the kills have been in favor of the Oni Warriors and still are, it was dead even a few minutes ago. This has been a very quiet buildup of over a 2,000 gold lead, approaching 2,500 gold in favor of the Jade Dragons. Experience trending in that direction as well. Sure, the Gold Fury makes up about half of that. But just the way that the game has been going recently through farming and pressure, the Jade Dragons have started to regain a bit of control.
Yeah, the majority of the lead for the Jade Dragons coming from the mid lane, which you should expect. 2-level lead still maintained for Pagon and has already started to finish off that Soul Reaver. So burst potential, the name of the game here. Dardes going to have to play very cautiously towards the center of the map. I'm still concerned for Vote's safety just because PBM still has that ultimate available, but has not gestured to even move over towards that left side of the map. Instead, I suppose, trusting Panda Cat, he had taken the 1v1 earlier. At a deficit, by the way. Panda Cat only has the beads, has not gone back to base until just now. Finishes up an entire Wind Demon and an Aegis. Whereas Vote had gone back to base, had the Tier 1 Shuriken and both relics available.
Hello, says Cubo Fred to Sanford Soccer, who jumps away. Looks like Titan's Bane for Cubo Fred, in the middle of this build. This Hunbats is going to be swinging for some damage.
He will. Interesting pickup. I feel like Titan's Bane is severely undervalued It gives you a lot of burst potential, especially on like a Sacred Monkey toss, but that's about it.
Whoa, Nika engaged on by Fine OK. Polar Bear Mike looking for a pull and grabs one onto Neil. Pagon's already found the opening kill. Nika finished off by the Thoth. Now Cubo Fred forced into the beads. Fear No Evil drops down right on top of Fine OK, who's abducted against the wall, but King Arthur doesn't go down. Finally, Detonate plus Neoma equals death. A 1-for-1 trade, and both solo laners back in base.
That chain CC on the Fine OK has got to be the
obnoxious.
most tilting thing. He wasn't allowed to play for like 5 or 6 seconds. He could have taken his hands off the keyboard, and it would have been the exact same outcome. The abduct into the lightning storm, Fear No Evil into the wall, all the while taking all that Zeus damage. Fine OK does his job. He facilitates the initial kill, and he actually eats a lot of cooldown, so buys a lot of space for the rest of his team. 15 seconds on the grayscale to sing his own praises, as the rest of the Jade Dragons are able to take back a little bit more on the map. Tier 1 tower on right will go their way, and despite losing out on Fine OK, well, the lead will continue going their way as well.
Yeah, Fine OK for Nika effectively mitigates those kills. So again, it's the rest of the map pressure for the Jade Dragons that seems to be working out. And it's not this high-octane, in-your-face, run-it-down playstyle from the Jade Dragons that's built up this lead. Right, this is a we're gonna draw things out. We're gonna play the map effectively. And so often we talk about this, but it seems like they keep getting better at it. Not that the Jade Dragons have been without fault in their last couple of sets. But this is the team that really over the last year has focused on diversifying their win conditions in the sense that no longer, and I don't think it's been the case for a while, Panda Cat dashes in towards Vote, dashes away. This was a 1v1. Polar Bear Mike makes it a 2v1. Aegis well timed by Vote. Neoma around the corner. And wouldn't you guess it, a Scarab's Blessing saves the life of Vote. Panda Cat has to watch another one get away. But 2 ultimates forced out. 1 used by Panda Cat. Aegis down for both of the Hunters as pressure looks like it's mounting around this left side tower. I think the Dragons really have, and this isn't a recent change, but the Dragons have, over the last year, become a team that can win in many different phases of the game.
Yeah, no longer is it, hey, we didn't win in the first 10 minutes, so we simply lost. The Jade Dragons very capable of playing these slower paces and continue to do so here.
Yep.
Tier 2 tower, seems like the Jade Dragons are willing to take this fight. Fine OK has made his rotation over to the left-hand side, dedicates the TP. Oni Fury not spawning for a little under a minute, but the Jade Dragons will allow this one to fizzle. Quick response from the Oni Warriors. They bring a lot of members over just to keep the Jade Dragons out of that tower.
Pagon is far and away ahead of everyone in this game right
that's
now.
huge.
Level 19. Pull in for Mike. That's on Neoma, who does not have Scarab's Blessing, but won't end up being a commitment from the rest of the Jade Dragons. Level 19 for Pagon is 2 levels ahead of every single player on the Oni Warriors, 5 levels ahead of Neoma, and 3 levels ahead of Vote. Panda Cat just 1 level behind at level 18. So Pagon far and away ahead of everyone in this game. Top net worth by about 1,000 gold of everyone in this game. Over around 2K
Wow.
over Dardes. How wide do you think, the damage gap is right now? Look at the way Pagon's been able to build. Divine Ruin, Spear of Deso, Soul Reaver, Tier 2 of Obshard, compared to Divine Ruin into Void Stone, into a little more of a bruisery style item, into what could be some flat pen, percent pen a little bit later on. How wide do you think that damage gap is?
If I had to guess, probably around 2,300. Just spitballing here. Pagon's able to apply that damage from a range, you know?
Yeah, thanks, Smith. That's exactly what I was asking. The Oni Fury bails you out as the Warriors have started it up, and the Warriors will finish it off, but Pagon deletes Neoma. There's a Fear No Evil sent towards the back line, but the Jade Dragons sidestep it. Forces Nika to go up and over. Great peel from Vote. But Fine OK surprises the Oni Warriors from around the right side of the wall. Still plenty of damage finding its way into the frontliner. A root on a Dardes could have spelled disaster. But instead, the Oni Warriors, they'll trade out Neoma for the Fury.
And that is a phenomenal trade for the Oni Warriors, just being able to slow down some of these plays from the Jade Dragons. But that said, 10 seconds left on Neoma's respawn. Takes 10 seconds to walk towards the center of the map. If the Jade Dragons can find a pick, and they might be able to, Cubo Fred, no beads available, stripped away by Fine OK. Could look towards the Fire Giant, even in just forcing out that leap. Pyromancer still looking mighty appetizing.
Mike does still have ultimate, and will have Blink in 3 seconds. Never mind. Blink is up right now, and the pull is there on Cubo Fred, who did not have beads. Pagon this fourth of the game. A jump out from Nika as Eagles rally is back up. Final judgment won't be sent. And the Jade Dragons continue to play around their mid laner, continue to play around Polar Bear Mike. And another kill drops, and for the first time this game, the Jade Dragons have the kill lead.
Man, I feel like I'm in like an OG COD lobby. The Jade Dragons are corner camping right now, just sitting around waiting for the Oni Warriors to take one step too far forward, and it's the right way to play because the Oni Warriors have to face check that Pyromancer. They need to make sure that it wasn't the Fire Giant pulled out. They are able to drop a standard ward in the Fire Giant pit proper, so should know if the Jade Dragons do start the largest neutral objective, but had to dedicate some bodies to get up there. Nika steps up. Nika was not the target. It was an immediate blink pass from PBM to shut down Cubo Fred again, who had lost his beads earlier after retreating from the Gold Fury. Final K strips those away with a phenomenal flank, and it sets up for that play itself. The Jade Dragons, even in losing the objective, the Gold Fury that is, still massively ahead.
Miff, you are definitely the corner camper, not the campy for sure.
Oh, I was running like AK-74U, man.
This is definitely the point in the game right now where I'm like finding somebody's name on the enemy team's scoreboard and like sending them messages, trying to get in their head and stuff. Oh yeah, if they're spawn camping me, they're corner camping me the way the Jade Dragons are. I'm letting it fly, man.
You think Cubo Fred's sending some inflammatory messages over
Yeah, and it's a lot
Sanford
easier
Soccer's
to
way?
do for these guys. They just whisper the name of one of the guys on the enemy team. You don't have to open it up and type out a full paragraph with like your Xbox controller, your PlayStation controller.
Oh, that was awful.
Yeah, it was the worst. Much harder. Back in the day.
These
now,
guys got keyboards.
No, so easy to send mean messages to guys on the other team. Jade Dragons maybe deserve it a little bit with the way they've been treating the Warriors over the last few minutes. Fire Giant, the next objective to be looked at. And with how far ahead the Jade Dragons are, not a team to shy away from that style of fight. Pagon obviously has reached level 20 as well as the rest of the Jade Dragons outside of the support. That is ridiculous. 2 levels behind in solo, jungle, and mid, and then a level behind over in ADC. I think the world is the Jade Dragons' oyster right now, Miff, and they can do as they please.
The answer for the Oni Warriors has got to be close gap on the Pagan. So far, the Oni Warriors have not dug in their heels and taken an actual fight. It's been small skirmishes or trying to find a pick or contesting an objective. Maybe now they can.
There you go. Final K gets abducted in, but immediately sends the ultimate right on back. This is a split engage. Fear No Evil's fantastic at separating out this fight, but the damage just way too far on the back line because Sanford Soccer has dove the Oni Warriors and Pagon obliterating the health bar of Cubo Fred. And Nika desperately trying to cling back to a kill, but Pagon says no chance, dashes in forward, already has a double kill. And Sanford Soccer goes up and over the wall. Sanford Soccer adds another kill. Pagon dashes forward, a triple kill for the newcomer, and the Jade Dragons come up big.
No shot. Pagon's allowed to dash aggressively twice in a team fight. Ended at 95% HP and is only forced to use one relic. Look, 10 seconds left, and it's Neoma. Yeah, I think the Dragons got it.
I think the Dragons can end game 1 seemingly out of nowhere. They built up this massive lead. Surely you have to follow the script, go Fire Giant, go Phoenixes, things like that, but the Jade Dragons grab a deicide, and Neoma will watch his Titan fall. The Jade Dragons came to play, and the Jade Dragons and Pagon at 7-0-3 will take game 1.
You know, I've seen a lot of discourse, if you would, some conversation, some pondering and positing from the community saying, look, you can't just keep replacing your mid laner. It can't just pay off. You can't just continually look towards him and say, it's gotta be this guy who needs to improve. If you are worried about the selection of Pagon to move up to the SPL and join the Jade Dragons, let your concerns be alleviated. That was wild.
And this is something we talked a lot to different teams about on their way in studio, during the team check-ins, things like that. Such minimal roster changes across the league, which teams could potentially look very different. Jade Dragons has been a team name that's been brought up. You know, Hurrywin fantastic at his style of play, but Pagon has a totally different style of play. And that's a ridiculous performance from the SPL newcomer here. Pagon 7-0-3 in game number 1. Jade Dragons off to a great start. Time for the Warriors to bounce back in game 2. Coming up next.
number 1, the Jade Dragons come out on top and put an early lead here up against the Oni Warriors. I'm still recovering from something that's stupid that Charlie sent me that's just in our game with the new Yorman Goose skin that we have out there. But ignoring that, at least now for the moment here, good performance out of Jade Dragons. And getting active early, something that we talked about, Charlie, with this team is the Jade Dragons draft these earlier comps, and they don't really seem to do a whole lot with it. Much different story here, though, in game number 1.
Yeah, I mean, the reason I highlighted that sort of range matchup in the mid lane is because Thoth just really should never die to Zeus in that lane, and we saw Pagon abusing that fact pretty heavily. Anytime he really found range on Dardes here, a solo kill could have came out. Myth highlighted that Dardes didn't beads, but you really have so much range. If you're able to hit everything, the beats really won't even save you there. Just great play by Pagon, single-handedly carrying my fantasy team this week.
Yeah, coming out with what was like a 7-0 end here in game number 1 for the mid laner of the Jade Dragons. The rest of the team a little bit less behind, so as far as getting some of those kills and numbers up there. But Pagon putting on a show here with this Thoth in game number 1, a reason why we have been seeing this God band away so many times. I mean, look how far Pagon is. And I think Dave and Miff were right to highlight during the cast. He got to aggressively dash at the Dragons twice in one team fight. I think this was the very first one that he goes in, up to dive towards this tier 1 or tier 2 tower. And then look at him. He's standing there menacingly staring at 2 people and still not dying.
And he gets the triple kill, and unfortunate Sam steals the quadra, but still, yeah, Pagon was able to pretty much dash it ineffectively. It just seemed like they really couldn't get to him. I was mentioning how, you know, the Hoonbats, they have decent die, but you have to get online, and if you're not able to push into this Thoth pick, if you're not able to withstand the full brunt of the damage, it's going to be a very rough time to try to deal with this pick, and obviously 18,000 damage in a pretty short time period, I would say. So Pagon really getting the value out of this Thoth mid.
Yeah, really finding some good damage out here in this shorter game here is Pagon on this Thoth. The only one on this team who also did not die, had 100% kill participation, and then top damage to boot on top of all that. And look, even at the player damage taken, this is something that we talk about with carries more often than not. I mean, your frontliners, your junglers, they're going to be sitting there soaking up damage after damage. You always want to look at the state of the game, and you can kind of pull those things apart based off damage taken. How much threat were these gods under? Pagon had like 5,000 damage taken. The next lowest was like 11 or 12,000 out of the other carry. I mean, nobody was able to get to this back line.
And yeah, and it's not so much as not trying to, it was just they really couldn't. I mean,
right.
No one wants to let a Thoth free cast onto their back line, but if you're trying to get that deep because of Thoth's range, you're just putting yourself so far out of position, and you have to be able to do it effectively and not trade out your life in that instance. So again, great positioning, and if it wasn't for Mike and FineOK making the range for Thoth to be able to do that, I think that has to be highlighted as well. I mean, the Ares pick and the King Arthur were being very disruptive, and that's why Thoth can do these things.
100% here. I mean, FineOK on this King Arthur, while he wasn't having the most fun at points, I mean, there was one moment where he was like Hoonbats ulted, then he was rooted by a Khepri, and then pulled by a Khepri, and then just died immediately after that. So there were moments where it didn't look so hot for some of these frontliners. But we'll see if the Dragons can keep with this hot streak. Game number 2, picks and bans ready to go up here. Oni Warriors still going to be in that first pick slot, choosing to take that side, even after the loss here. And now the question is, Rachel, oftentimes with gods like Medusa or these really off-meta kind of, or on the I should say on the opposite side, these off-meta style of gods where a player pops off and you're like, I don't really know if I want to waste a ban on that. Because of how meta Thoth is, do you think that it's worth for the Oni Warriors to maybe try and draft around that one?
I would say if you're the Oni Warriors right now, you're trying to get Nika on something that could get to a Thoth. I would imagine that is the playstyle right now. Of course, you want Cuvo to deal with it first in the jungle before the solo laner has to rotate, but I feel like this team, they just benefit so much from having Nika be able to get to the back line as Cuvo. Well, they both want to be able to dive here, but the Bologna just wasn't able to really disrupt as much as they would want here, so they have to switch something up if they find out that the Thoth was just too much to deal with, which I can't imagine they would. I think more so they just want to get themselves on more comfortable picks, but they still have that option. They have one more ban here. Erlong and Ardio, pretty run-of-the-mill, as we've mentioned already.
As we can see, Erlong and Zeus are the top bans right now in the SPL, and for a good reason. When we saw just what a Zeus could do in that last game, we've seen what Erlong can do in the hands of players like Scream earlier on in our day. But as the bans continue to go through, Erlong, Ardio, Daji, and then Camazotz, Kalina, and Kabrakan. So same bans here on the side of the Dragons, but a switch up now. This time the Oni Warriors will pick up Gilgamesh for themselves, where last time around Jade Dragons were able to pick that up for them.
Yeah, they have the Gilgamesh now. That is definitely going to be more pressure than the early game. I mean, more early game pressure than the Hoonbats, of course. You're really just, as we mentioned, time and time again, Hoonbats is just really there for that ultimate, whereas Gilgamesh, the drop kick, is going to bring a lot of pressure, as is. You don't really need the Winds of Samash to find these ganks and find the damage. So a good switch up there for the Oni Warriors. Again, this could be a flex pick. We've seen it in the solo lane a few times, but I'm still thinking more so this is a Cuvo pick.
Yeah, we've been seeing more often than not the Gilgamesh make its way into the jungle. A couple times with, I think, players like Ducky were taking Gilgamesh over into the solo lane over on the former Valhalla Valkyries team. But here in Season 9, Gilgamesh has pretty much only seen himself there in that jungle role. Jade Dragon's now with a couple of picks of their own. Now that Gilgamesh is gone, typical response out of a lot of the SPL teams has been to pick up the Medusa. That will hold true here in that second pick. But the Jade Dragons now kind of flexing back over towards this Hobwall. We've seen it a couple of times out of them and a couple of times throughout the league. 100% win rate so far in the few games that he's been picked up here. How do you like that second pick, though, Trelly?
I like it because of the flex potential, as we've mentioned. We know that Sam for Soccer likes playing the Hebo jungle, but also, I mean, at this point, there's probably not a character that I would look at and say, yeah, Pagon probably can't play that mid. So I wouldn't say that it's ruled out at the moment. But Hebo or Hubwa, there's lots of late game presence. When you get Blink online, if you do, you have so much kill potential at about level 5. The Morgan, though, is going to be the answer back. And I will say the Hebo into the Morgan is a difficult matchup because Morgan is able to sort of just go in invisible and assassinate the Hebo. But if you just wait for that transformation, knock her up with Water Spout, she can't beads in the middle of it, and you can pretty much just one-shot if she doesn't turn into a tank before the animation finishes. So it's a difficult matchup here, but there also is a lot of different transformations you can use. Of course, double Winds of Samash, that's going to be a fun time as well.
Yeah. Tightrope to walk here up against a pick like the Morgan. The Jade Dragons are now currently hovering this E set. With a Hubwat locked in, this E set could still go over to mid towards Pagon if they wish to. More often than not, we have been seeing the E set go over into the support. Though, I'd be remiss if I didn't talk about the fact that we just saw an E set jungle a few games ago here. So, still some flexibility here on the side of the Jade Dragon should this pick get locked in, and it will. So far we've seen 2 mages and a hunter on the side of the Jade Dragons, but with no real confirmation onto where any of these would go. I mean, we even saw Medusa mid out of Big Man Tings in the previous set.
Yeah, to me, the E-set is going to be the answer for the Bacchus and Duo lane, so I really do think this is Polar Bear Mike on the E-set support saying, hey, if you try to belly flop, I'm going to wing Gus. If you try to burp, I'm going to silence you or spirit ball you out. So just shutting down all of that Duo lane presence while also having a pretty solid objective confirm with that Circle of Protection. Not only to mention you have a Petrify and a Crushing Wave in the back just in case. So to me, I'm thinking this is Hebo jungle and E-set support, but as you mentioned, if you're the Oni Warriors, you really can't bet on that just yet. You have to really see how this draft goes because the Jade Dragons could be holding on to that element of surprise, saying, hey, waste your bans thinking that, and then we're going to whip out something else.
Well, so far, the Dragons will use one of their bans towards Cthulhu. So another one of the top solo Guardians now taken off the table. A lot of teams have been kind of eyeing this god for a little while here in these last couple of weeks of play. But with the Oni Warriors now in this predicament of where is this Hobwa going? Where is this ESAT going? They're taking a little bit longer to decide what they want to throw their bans towards because they can't even fully throw it, towards any of these roles specifically. They don't know if they can use the jungle ban if that Hebo is going there. They don't know necessarily if this Medusa is going over into the hunter role. But for now, they will take away at least one more hunter. A Muzen Cobb going to be taken over. We've been seeing a lot of pickups of him recently, and now finally seeing a nice little ban here in Game 2.
Yeah, so the Oni Warriors seem to be thinking, hey, that is an E-set support, and that is a Hebo jungle, and that's a Medusa ADC, but AMC mid could be the issue, so that does seem to be the thought process, but also saying they still don't have a solo laner, so we can pretty safely ban away Bellona, taking a little bit of that pressure away as well. Again, the Jade Dragons holding on to some of that interest, and most people might think the Susanoo is going to the jungle, but as we've seen, if we have Sam for Soccer on that Hebo, Pagon can go the Susanoo mid and bring a lot of pressure onto the Morgan.
I mean, during the kickoff tournament that we had a couple of weeks ago, Pagon, in fact, played the Susanoo mid, and to great success. I mean, he was even diving Tier 1 towers at like 7 minutes, standing between both T1 and T2. So, for those of you at home just now tuning in, don't be fooled by this Susanoo Hubwa and E-set combination here. This Susanoo could very well make his way into mid in the hands of Pagon. But now, the Oni Warriors looking at a couple of their, or at least one of their other frontliners in the way of Achilles to be locked in. But it will not be Achilles. Instead, it's another god that starts with an A. Amaterasu will be the final frontline now for the Oni Warriors.
Yeah, and looks like a Hou Yi hover as well, just trying to have a little bit of 1v1 potential in that fight. That's really what Hou Yi brings to the table, is a solid fight with the Ricochet always being a good option, but the clear, not so well early game. You have the Bacchus to try and balance that out, but it looks like fine, okay, maybe hovering Chiba here. I'm very interested to see if this goes through, because we were just talking about a little bit ago. We don't know how this pick is going to perform. This will be the first time we actually get to see it in the hands of a pro, and it's going to be immediately
And it's gone.
just looking away back to that King Arthur.
It really is just one of those, we're going to take a look at Shiva here, and it's gone. Just like that. No Shiva. No discussion on him any further here. Instead, like you said, fine, okay, back on the King Arthur. Had a decent game one on it. Wasn't able to find a whole lot of kills, but was able to rack up some pretty solid damage here for the Jade Dragons. And now looking at this comp holistically, if we are going to take the assumptions of some of the other gods and roles that these guys have been playing, so the Habwa to the jungle, Iset over in support, and Susano mid is what we kind of are banking on here. That matchup of Susano into Morgan, how does that one kind of play out here, Trelly?
I think Pagon's idea is to try to get that transformation down as early as possible, and then say, I'm going to try to kill this Morgan, right? She doesn't have that much safety. If you can get that jet stream, get the third ability on Susanoo onto her, even if she's invis, it's going to wake her up. You're going to easily be able to get that kill. So I think Pagon's going to try to get very aggressive in this lane as well. Same sort of style. Thoth into Zeus, you're getting aggressive early. Susanoo into the Morgan, you're probably trying to get aggressive early, get a heavy lead. And as we mentioned, though, the Hebo and the Susanoo could very easily just switch roles in the jungle and the mid. So it doesn't really matter. Whichever one you're dealing with here, you're looking to get very aggressive and try to find kills at level 5.
Yeah, I mean, that was kind of the topic of game number one, was are the Jade Dragons going to get aggressive with this early comp? Are they going to be able to abuse the range that they had in the advantage over the Oni Warriors? And they did. Now is kind of that same question here. Do the Dragons get aggressive here in game number 2? Can they close out the set with a nice and clean 2-0 for themselves? Are the Oni Warriors going to take us to game 3? Let's jump right in to see.
Jade Dragons roll over the Oni Warriors in game number 1. Can they do the same with Pagon on Susano mid? That's the question. All right, I do have to peel back the curtain a little bit. Am I allowed to talk about this, Miff? I don't know if this is like an important thing to you or...
Dude, my bracelet broke.
Yeah, Mifflin has one of those bracelets that has like the string that goes through it, and there's a whole bunch of circular beads on it, and he was just kind of playing with it while the death segment was going on. I kid you not, it just exploded. There's beads all over the floor. Oh, that's unbelievable. Poor guy. All right, well, what a way to start off.
And they broke my broom is the thing. Like,
yeah,
I
now
can't even fix
we can't even sweep it up. Unlucky for you, Miff. Jade Dragons might be able to sweep the Oni Warriors here in a quick couple of games, if they're able. Now Mike's got to clean up your bracelet.
Well, I'm casting the game.
Right.
You know, Mike, just leave it there. I'll get to it.
No, you're right, Miff.
Oh, Mike just hit me.
I'll give
God.
you, Miff, I will give you an out here. And
Okay.
you can talk about Pagon on the Susano mid.
Oh, Pagon's playing Susano. Very cool. I was distraught about my bracelet being broken. It has good potential to find a lot of bullying, but whether or not it's able to clear is yet to be seen. I think that up against the Morgan, a god that has relatively low potential clear, you're probably not too pressed about it. Should be able to outpressure that. If you're ever taking a fight up against the Morgan, levels 1 through any of them, Susano going to be favored in that regard. But it's more so about that late game scaling and the ability to rotate. You've already got your dedicated jungler, Habwa. I mean, generally not a high mobility god, but one that can rotate just by nature of being in the jungle. Susano, incredibly high mobility, not jungling, still can rotate.
I wonder, Miff, how, as Pagon maybe had a chance for a kill there, instead uses the jet stream. That's a bit of clear. I wonder how obnoxious this E-set will be into Nilma on this Bacchus. You know, with the channeled stun being so much of Bacchus's initiation, pressure over here in the duo lane. Do you think Mike's at a spot? See, he doesn't end up letting it fly this time. Looks like Spirit Ball and Wind Gust is what Mike has right now. Do you think there's potential for counterplay here when Nilma might end up having a hard time finding stuns on a consistent basis over on left?
Oh, for sure. Dispel Magic, unless you're using it to initiate, will likely be relegated to just stopping the channeled abilities on the Oni Warriors. Isn't just going to be Nilma either. Dardes to a certain extent with that triple aspect, I believe is the name of the ability. The stun, you can silence that one out while you're channeling it. Generally out of stealth, though, going to be a little bit harder to find that.
Hey, a level 3 gank from Susano. Surely it's San Francisco, right? No, it's Pagon out of the mid lane. Over to the left side of the map. Teleports back in. Pulls Nilma back. And Spirit Ball might have gotten it done. But just shy of execute-worthy damage are the Jade Dragons. And Nilma will live. Didn't have Shell, had Blink. Now Pagon puts out some pressure onto this purple buff. Be careful, as Pagon can turn around a lot of this damage quickly, but sensing maybe some impending danger, Pagon heads back towards mid.
Pagon played that legitimately perfectly. Those were the perfect ability cancels, great auto attack cancels, puts out the maximum amount of damage, doesn't miss anything, and still goes unrewarded. One more auto attack would have gone a long way there, but wasn't quite able to find it, and the rest of the follow-up not right behind him. And that is the double-edged sword of making these early rotations. He spends a lot of time hovering the jungle. He spends a lot of time trying to secure that kill. Unsuccessful in both, falls behind.
Final K being ganked by Cubo Fred. Dazzling offensive will add the stun. And there's first blood over to the Oni Warriors. Executed perfectly. Not much that Final K can do there. Didn't have ultimate. Nika hit level 5 first. I mean, the timing was perfect there for the Oni Warriors. Rotate over right as level 5 drops. And Final K will fall for first blood.
Fortunately for Final K, has teleport as that first relic selection, so should be able to make his way back to lane and not miss out on too much. That said, a whole level down, just now ticking over to 5, whereas Nika had killed him at level 5. It's going to be pretty tough. What are you laughing about? What are you laughing about?
The comedic timing of your bracelet exploding just like replayed in my head. And
okay, cool. Cool. You're literally preying on my downfall live on air.
I'm not preying on it. I can't believe how perfect it was. Right as I'm catching the throw, your bracelet explodes.
Yeah, well, you're going to get me a new one, so it's fine.
What?
Yeah, you blow it up.
Blowing up your spot? Maybe I'm not blowing up your bracelet. I don't know about that. Fine, okay. Now's going to have to fight back into this lane, but as you mentioned, Miff, with that teleport, a little bit of an easier time. Pagon, luckily, like this low in levels, able to catch up somewhat quickly, but because of that failed gank, failed in the sense that it didn't pick up any kills, there will be a kind of perpetual deficit until Dardes does the same thing. If Dardes does the same thing somewhere else on the map, then Pagon will be able to close up that gap. But we're still in a spot now, Miff. Completed Jotun's Wrath. Dardes is effectively going to be fighting against, not effectively, will be fighting against an assassin here in mid.
With red buff.
With red buff. So Pagon has these opportunities, despite a level deficit, to put pressure, maybe even grab a kill on a Dardes.
Dardes will benefit from the fact that he could transform into an Amaterasu or even potentially a Bacchus, Gilgamesh, another great transformation, all of which going to give you a good deal of survivability and
Whoa, yeah, maybe we're looking at the opposite though. Pagon sends Typhoon out towards Cubo Fred. Polar Bear Mike stuns up Cubo with the Spirit Ball. Does Mike trade out his own life though? Circle of Protection is down. Burst heal on the other side. One after another, the Oni Warriors funnel into the mid lane. Pagon will not get stunned by Neilma, and somehow Pagon lives. Polar Bear Mike with perfect peel there for Pagon out of the mid lane, and Pagon plays that perfectly again. But there was just no chance for Mike at some point there, right? Once Nika shows up, we're sending everyone but Vote over to the mid lane. There's got to be a kill there, and this time it's on to PBM, and the Oni Warriors' aggressive play style grabs a 2-kill and 1,000 gold lead start.
Love that play from Pagon, though. Transitions the ultimate allocation over towards Cubo Fred, says, hey, please stay away from me. Immediately dashes into the jungle. Baton pass with PBM, trading places. PBM drops off the shell for his efforts as well. So costs PBM his relic and his ultimate and his life to save Pagon. And barely at that, Pagon nearly falls down to a rotation from Neilma, chasing him throughout the jungle. Meanwhile, we haven't seen anything from Sanford Soccer as of yet. Not Sanford Soccer's job, though. He's playing Habois. He's just scaling. That's all he's here for. Levels 1 through 10, he might as well be a non-factor on the map. If we look at damage, I wouldn't be surprised if he's hovering around like 100. No, it's 200. And it's going to stay there.
Literally twice what you thought.
Oh, my God.
Yeah, this playstyle is probably good for the Jade Dragons in the long term. Sad for me and my fantasy team where Sanford Soccer is my jungler. Here's his chance to get involved, though, as Cubo Fred knocked up into Final K's ultimate. Sanford Soccer crushing wave. Give me a couple points in fantasy this week. His Circle of Protection is down. And I'll immediately lose points as Nika grabs the kill, and he's in there for the killing spree. Final K, though, it will also add 1. Ends up being a 2-for-1 trade for the Jade Dragons. They were lined up perfectly for Sam there, but still enough return damage. And Nika is so strong at this point in the game. Things are kept interesting. Blue buff gets dropped by Nika, who will end up disengaging. 2-for-1 trade for the Jade Dragons on right.
Meanwhile, red buff invade goes their way as well, and Pagon able to close up a bit of that gap that was established earlier on This game completely even. Just a first blood bounty separating these two teams. Take a peek at the builds, though, Dave. Seems like FineOK just really likes this Sovereignty start onto King Arthur. It's a good infusion of HP. It's going to help you out in these team fights. Generally, PBM going to be playing pretty far back in the fight, so FineOK going to act as that frontliner. You're spreading out that passive, that aura defense from Sovereignty. And, well, it's going to help you out against the jungler. Fred playing a physical. You're laning against a physical. You're double dipping on that defense. Going to make it pretty hard to want to rotate over and shut down this King Arthur. Luckily for the Oni Warriors, they already put Nika ahead before that defense had come online. So FineOK sitting one level behind.
Wow, Nika is going to be difficult to deal with in these fights, huh?
He's on my fantasy team.
He's got, is Nika your fantasy solo laner?
That's right.
God, good thing. To be clear, we're playing, we do points, reverse points based on where you finish in points on any given week. So we have 6 players, you get 6 points for first, all the way down to 1 point. You have the lowest amount of points. Thank God I'm not playing against you. You and I casting with one another while like our players are playing against
Dude, it would go wild.
It would be horrible. Nika is off to a great start for the Warriors and you here, Myth. Berserker Shield plus Frostbound and a killing spree for Nika on this Amaterasu.
Yeah, keep saying it.
The stick potential at an all-time high and a blue buff invade at that. I like the mirror, though. Fred and Neil over to this side of the map just in case. And Nika continues to pull away some farm from FineOK.
He does. Sanford Soccer, similarly, just hovering in the jungle, farming up. Looks like he's moving in towards a breastplate in the second slot. Very curious. Not something I'm used to seeing on Hubwa out of the jungle. It's going to give you some survivability. Maybe that's the concern for Sanford Soccer. But generally on Hubwa, survivability not the name of the game. It's water spout, crushing wave. God, I hope I live long enough to water cannon afterward. If yes, awesome. If no, doesn't matter. I hit crushing wave.
Yeah, I mean, the water hands are on such a low cooldown anyway, but Breastplate of Valor, I mean, I guess if you live through that rotation, you'll be able to spam another 1 or 2 per team fight. Dardes is close by in stealth. Polar Bear Mike drops the silence. What happens to Dardes? Sanford Soccer on Habwa happens. Vote will go up and over, and he'll get out. Pagon, though, sends a Typhoon his way, and Pagon is tower diving, will grab the kill, but silent stun, no chance. Nika, all 4 kills for the Oni Warriors now. Sanford Soccer with a chance at a second, and Sanford Soccer doesn't miss his chance.
Dispel Magic plus Shell gives Sanford Soccer essentially a Nike ultimate in that. Nika uses his own and does not get rewarded for it. That's exactly what I was talking about, by the way, for the Hubwa style of play. It's, hey, I found my ultimate, I lined it up, and I did a whole lot of damage immediately afterward.
Look at how much damage he's got now.
Yeah, he's top of the damage
Last
charts.
to first.
That's exactly the styling that Hubwa brings. But going Breastplate for Valor is going to slow down that potential a fair bit. I mean, sure, Doom Orb is already a massive power infusion at this point in the game, but you don't have any penetration, and it's going to be a while until you get it built up. That said, a 3-level lead might just make up for that lacking in the build.
Yeah, Nika, still the threat on the other side. Picks up Heavenly Wings, Myth. And so if Berserkers plus Frostbound wasn't going to be annoying enough to run away from, now you've got a sprinted up Nika who's going to be chasing you down twice as heavily, and the rest of the Oni Warriors. Feels mostly even everywhere outside of jungle and solo lane right now. A pretty wide margin in the experience department is built up for Sam, but FineOK at least has only fallen 1 level behind, but 4 kills behind, or 3 kills rather, behind Nika, who is 4-0 up to this point. Gold Fury stands strong on the left side of the map. Neither the Jade Dragons nor the Oni Warriors with a crazy margin over in duo lane just yet, just the 1 level between support and ADC. So maybe not hefty enough of a gap, Myth, to feel comfortable pulling the Gold Fury, but when you've got Circle of Protection, as far as secure goes, maybe not team fight, but as far as secure goes, at this point in the game, the Dragons should still favor themselves.
I think so. If I'm on the Jade Dragons right now, I'm doing exactly this. Creating pressure, playing around this duo lane, trying to find a pick. If you do find a pick, start to use that superior secure ability on these Gold Furies to do exactly that. And it's not just Circle Protection, by the way. It's Circle Protection giving you damage mitigation, plus burst damage, plus healing, which means that the team fight likely will at least go net neutral if you're forced to reset the Gold Fury. Or you could just use Crushing Wave as an even further point of confirmation.
Wow.
Pulled out now, going to trade aggro back and forth, no one taking damage.
Panicat and Sanford Soccer just juggling the Fury back and forth amongst one another. Fred moves his way over, and he should not be here. Pagon follows him through the jump out, and
Where'd he go?
Pagon, the second kill of the game. Sanford Soccer nearly taken down by the Fury, but the Fury ends up dropping to the Jade Dragons. 1-for-1 trade, making a 2-for-1 on the other side as Cubo, Fred, and Neil have both died as well. Pagon trades his life for the Jade Dragons, pick up the Fury, and pick up Cubo plus Neil.
It's the first time Final K has out-rotated Nika in this game and goes up huge for the Jade Dragons. Surprised that the Dragons hold on to aggro the Gold Fury with PBM nowhere nearby. Notice that the Circle Protection, the only ability, the only ultimate rather, not used by the Jade Dragons. That was a coin toss through and through. A weighted coin toss because Crushing Wave just slams at this point in the game. But a coin toss nonetheless. Feel like had PBM been a little bit closer, Sam may have been able to get involved in that team fight. But we're splitting hairs. The Jade Dragons come up by and large ahead. The Oni Warriors essentially walking in one by one to defend that objective.
It did feel that way. Wonder where some of Dardez's transformations start to look towards as this game goes on. Habwa, a popular transformation target anyway, but Sam at 3-1 and 3 has some good itemization to transform into as well, though Dardez pretty strong in his own right with Doom Orb and Spear of Desolation already completed. But, you know, if the concern is objective secure, there's transformation options for Dardez that can rival some of the secure that the Jade Dragons have.
Well, match it, really.
Match it.
Because you turn into them.
Right. Yeah, but then there's also a Circle of Protection plus a Crushing Wave, so you can rival it.
Either one of them.
Which was supposed to be a pun for the Jade Dragons and a few of the guys on their roster, but
oh, I see now.
yeah, thank you. So the Oni Warriors have opportunities to fight into some of those objectives. And Nika now picks up Shogun's Kusari, plus also Shogun's Kusari for Cubo Fred. Vote is going to be facilitated so heavily as this game goes on with those two, and Nika will as well. Really fighting around these auto attackers seems to be the name of the game for the Warriors.
It does. Those passives do not stack up on top of each other, so it's only going to apply once, even if it is Nika and Cubo standing right next to each other in all of these team fights. But I think that is unlikely. It's generally going to be Nika diving as far as he can into the fight, trying to close gap onto Sanford Soccer, particularly. Generally, it would be the mid laner, but this time the mid laner is playing Susano, and that's a very slippery god and one that will be diving in their own right. So, if Cubo Fred can utilize that Shoguns to close gap and stick to Sam, could limit the Jade Dragons.
Pyromancer alone. It's the Oni Warriors who have started it. It will be the Oni Warriors who finish it. Typhoon is out for Pagon, and it somehow finds two. Max value from that, and Pagon, I think, was only aiming for one, just lined up perfectly, and Cubo Fred has had a forgettable game number 2, 0 and 4, with the 4 assists, of course, on the Gilgamesh. The Pyromancer ends up getting taken down by the Jade Dragons. Panda Cat sending damage Dardez's way. He's transformed into the Amaterasu. Neilma is here as well, but Circle of Protection. I want to fight right there, says Panda Cat. Neilma taken down. Bad to worse all over the map. Oni Warriors lose 2 and the Pyro.
Jade Dragons dominant now. No neutral objectives alive for them to look towards except for the Fire Giant. And 15 minutes in, with no Circle Protection available, gotta think Fire Giant not on the menu just yet. So instead, spend some time scaling, and that is exactly what their draft does between this Habwa and Susano. The Jade Dragons picked a composition that is going to look very good in the late game and dominated the early game with it. Now, 3-level lead for Sanford Soccer out of the jungle. Will head back to base, likely finish off. Considering he's already gone for CDR, I'll just go ahead and say Spear of Desolation in that third slot. Bump you up to 30%, give you a little bit more penetration, a large infusion of power. Spear of Desolation, one of the best CDR items on Habwa particularly because it is a flat reduction on kill, and you've already got very low cooldowns on Water Cannon. I like it so far. The Jade Dragons essentially can do no wrong.
Well, they can't. And the Jade Dragons, the type of team who like to push their lead very effectively, especially with this aggressive style of composition. Swing and a miss here for you, Miff. Obshard for Sanford Soccer.
It's never been easy, man. It's never been easy.
Ends up being his third item. Some style of penetration, though, for Sam, and I think that
that's what that item turns into. Thank you for giving me an out, though.
Yeah, you're right. We'll see if Sam can translate some of that percent pen into effective damage with how tanky Nika and Cubo Fred are maybe starting to feel with their Shoguns and Gauntlet of Thebes there for Neilma. Sam eyeing that item, maybe seeing some more value in it than Spear of Desolation. I mean, what a call that would have been, right? Cubo Fred trying to jump away from Pagon here. as you get this sense of an impending threat from the Jade Dragons grouping up over here by the red buff. Looks like it might be respawning here shortly. No, it got taken down just now by the Jade Dragons themselves. The Primal Fury did respawn. I think the Oni Warriors miffed too far behind to invest too much into this Fury.
Yeah, here's the thing about how Neilma is 4 levels down and doesn't have second relic. He is 4 levels down and does not have his second relic or item available at this rate. I mean, tier 2 in that second slot, whereas PBM has gone for Lono's Mask in his second item and has already fully upgraded his relics. So PBM makes the dedicated decision to get some more team fight presence, some more active cooldowns, sacrifices some survivability in the build, but picks up a ton of it just by going for that Lono's Mask. Now percentage more damage, or percentage less damage taken and dealt for this E set through support. And, well, PBM doesn't really need to be dealing a whole lot of damage because he's got it flanked around him in all lanes. All of them, every single one, have got a lead. 3 levels in the jungle. You've got 4 in support. You've got 1 in ADC. So the Jade Dragons, I think now, in a position where they can just start moving over towards this Fire Giant, speed up that pace, and just play around some of these relic timers. I think 50 seconds left on that Belt of the Berserker for PBM.
Yep.
Yeah, when that's up, I think Fire Giant's getting pulled.
Well, Pagon, a little extra survivability here. My guy's cloak picked up. So you're going to have the CC immune bubble, and you also have beads. And he's got Jotuns and Hydras. So,
a lot of CDR.
So getting the Susano off of a target is going to be difficult. Is this a game where I should avoid saying beads, Myth, after your bracelet exploded before the game?
Oh my God.
Are you sad hearing the word beads after the way that this game started? I can try to avoid it.
No, I always sacrifice myself for my work, so why not continue to do so?
We'll keep saying the word beads then as this game goes on. Won't bother Myth too bad. Pagon effectively has 2 instances of it. One he can't control, one that the Oni Warriors will have to burst on their own. Fire Giant, rather, hovered around by the Jade Dragons. But the Oni Warriors, again, you know, it's that interesting spot where you're 5,000-6,000 gold down. You don't want it to get too much worse if you lose a massive fight around the Fire Giant, but if the Fire Giant gets secured by the Dragons, they can effectively run down the map. I mean, it's a game of chess that the Oni Warriors are going to be forced into playing here at some point.
Vote on the left side of the map shows himself on wave. Panic Cat already around the Fire Giant, going to be able to pull that one out.
And he cancels his back.
Pretty easily. I mean, there's no way they could stop it. It just has to be a steal from Nika, and, well, Amaterasu doesn't have the greatest steal potential.
Or is Darda's going to try to transform into the Habwa.
Oh, reset.
Instead, your Dardes, though, transforms into the Amaterasu here. Dazzling offensive in. Finds 3 on the stun, but there is too much damage from the Jade Dragons. The rest of the Oni Warriors disengaging over the left side wall. Dardes trying to get out and away, won't be able to do so. Vote still on the left side of the map, chunking down the towers. Will get likely a tier 1 and a tier 2 tower over on the left as the Jade Dragons pick up the FG after getting a kill onto Dardes.
Yeah, Pagon just acting as goaltender here. Nika cannot walk past him. Well, should be able to get his own blue buff unless Pagon really wants to add some insult to injury. Will allow the Oni Warriors Soul Laner to get that for himself, but Fire Giant goes to 5 members of the Jade Dragons, as does the gold lead and the experience lead. In a very good position now to finish off these tier 2s. 3 tier 2s still standing.
Man,
that's plenty of gold on the map to collect.
I can't figure out this. I think the Oni Warrior. I don't want to read too much.
Peaks and valleys.
Right. I don't want to read too much into how all of Season 9 is going to go. Right. I mean, this is the first year where this team is going to be able to play together all year long on land. So who knows what their peak is? Apparently, beating the defending world champions last
and the 3-time.
Yeah, the 3-time. Right. Only a few 2-times on that roster.
Goodness.
But such a hard team to figure out sometimes. You get the Oni Warriors of last week who take down the Leviathans and go 3 games against the Bolt, and you get the Oni Warriors up against the Jade Dragons here where this game has just slipped away from very early on. It's a difficult team to read at times, Myth. And so I think, you know, while this game not over, we're in the 99% category for the Jade Dragons here. I'm sure the Oni Warriors will tell you what we need to work on is just playing a consistent brand of Smite, because we have seen awesome Smite already from this team in Season 9, rolled through the qualifier tournament to get back into the SPL, and beat the Leviathans last week, and then you get a set like this where nothing seems to be going their way.
Well, fortunately for the Oni Warriors, maximum power spikes have been hit for the Jade Dragons. In saying that, I mean, a bunch of them have ticked over to level 20. Not going to make it easy to defend these Phoenixes, but if you're successful in doing so, you're going to see some of these gaps start to close up. Namely in the jungle. Cubo Fred level 16 as opposed to Sam for Soccer's 20. Means that Cubo Fred not exactly tanky right now, doesn't exactly deal a whole lot of damage either. The Jade Dragons will not go for the panic end, air quotes, and instead work their way all the way across the entirety of the map, make sure that every single one of these tier 2 towers will fall down first. Wonder if we see them back up, spend that gold. Final K seems to be doing so, but has teleport, could rejoin his team if they so decide, but they do not. Golden Pocket makes not for a lead, and 3 tier 2s is worth a whole lot. The Jade Dragons going to go ahead, finish up some of these items. Charged Bow for Panda Cat, Rod of Tahuti now for Sam for Soccer, fully upgraded to the Calamitous Rod. That's a whole lot of damage, essentially just another ability for you to cast, spawning up that meteor whenever you proc damage onto an enemy god. They can regroup yet again and still have a minute and a half to play with this Fire Giant.
Have we seen someone get a kill finished off by the Calamitous Rod of Tahuti yet?
I'm sure, but I couldn't say.
Yeah, it's probably difficult to see unless it's like Sam up against one person. Like in a big team fight, there's no chance. I noticed the meteor dropping down, but
it's hard to see it in general.
Right. Sam for Soccer, I think, in a 1v1 solo moment, might be able to read that out. Is right. This Pagon nearly caught by a few members of the Oni Warriors who were rotating through the mid lane. But that's on my checklist for this year. That's on one of my bingo squares is seeing a Calamitous Rod of Tahuti and also the SpongeBob Blink, both 2 separate squares, grabbing a kill at some point throughout the year. I bet we'll see it at least once. We'll notice it at least once, rather. Vote uses the beads through the silence. Could this be the final fight of the game? And final fight of the set, Nilma desperately clinging to life as he belly flops away. Final K, though, has something else in mind. Chases down Vote on the back line.
Double.
And this King Arthur is unrelenting. A double kill already for Final K. A third just around the corner. But Cubo Fred makes it into the fountain. The Jade Dragons make it into the Titan room. And there is simply way too much damage. The Jade Dragons have done it all. And they're going to pad their stats, pad our fantasy teams up a little bit. Sam for Soccer, yeah, he had to kill at the end here. Give me another. The Jade Dragons take it 2-0.
A convincing victory for the Jade Dragons in this one. The Oni Warriors just did not seem to wake up on the right side of the bed today. That was not the exact same team that we saw last week. And the Jade Dragons are a squad that were allowed to play their brand of Smite. In Game 1, it was a slower, methodical pace. In Game 2, I would argue pretty fast.
Yeah, that's a great example, actually, of what we were talking about in Game 1, about how over the course of the last year, the Dragons have diversified how they can win games. 2 totally different styles of games from the Jade Dragons, but the result is the same here, a 2-0 win over the Oni Warriors. And this is a very threatening look at a Jade Dragons team where throughout... You covering your wrist?
I'm just feeling a little exposed.
Are you? Unlucky. Hey, we avoided saying beads down the stretch.
Didn't come up.
I did say Vote had to use his beads in that final team fight. I don't know. The Oni Warriors explode similar to Mifflin's bracelet just prior to game number 2. Jade Dragons take this one 2-0. We'll take a quick break, and the desk will take us home right after.
2 games this time for the Jade Dragons to find a win here over the Oni Warriors. The first set that the Warriors haven't been able to take to all 3, but still continuing the trend here for the Jade Dragons of only having these 2 game sets, whether it be a win or a loss. They're able to find it here in 2. Jade Dragons, a dominant performance in game number 1, and very similar here in game number 2, Charlie. I mean, from minute 1 yet again. Well, we asked at the very beginning of the set, are the Jade Dragons going to get active on the map early? They're going to draft these comps that can do so here, and they're able to do it in 2 games straight.
Yep, the doubters are in shambles, and this is the reason I put my stock into Pagon in that mid lane and for my fantasy team. The man can carry, and he can get ahead in that mid lane. He did it game 1 on the Thoth into a Zeus, and he did it again on the Susanoo into a Morgan.
Yeah, able to find some very nice picks in the midst of these fights. Early on, trading out his life, getting these 1-for-1 trade outs, you know, the very typical assassin style of play that we always talk about. You know, as long as you can get 1-for-1 here, you're doing your job as the assassin, though in this case, Pagon's the mid laner. And as the late game started coming through, he was no longer making these 1-for-1 trades. Instead, at least getting more than just the one, or even just not dying.
Yeah, playing perfectly as you need to. Of course, the tanks of the team as well, making sure to be very disruptive. Fine, okay. Another one of my star pupils on my team.
God, we're really talking about both of yours, aren't we?
I'm just saying, yeah, they're both the highlight here, and there's a reason for it. My team's looking very solid this week. They didn't get off to a great start, obviously. They didn't score too much, but right now, looking good, and I just can't help but think, you know, I always saw it coming.
You know, you did need some help. You were bottom of the fantasy this week by a pretty considerable margin.
That's what I'm saying. They didn't get off to a great start, but I knew they would. I had the faith.
You got some faith here, at least in Pagon. The fans get a little bit more faith here in the Jade Dragons with a strong performance here up against the Oni Warriors. Even though the Oni Warriors were able to find some strong wins in their performance last week up against teams like the Bullets and the Olympus Leviathans, good lord, the Olympus Bullets and Atlantis Leviathans. It has been a day. Charlie has been throwing me for a loop before we've ever gotten to any of these desks.
My goodness.
Every single time. It's been a chaotic moment with the 2 of us here, though. The Jade Dragons do find a win here, continuing once again that 2-0 trend on their victories. A nice little pick-me-up after their loss last week against the Titans.
Yeah, I mean, most of these sets, like you said, have been going to 3 games. So being able to win very convincingly in this fashion, got to make the Jade Dragons feel pretty good.
Yeah, Jade Dragons are feeling good, and maybe even their mid laner who had a nice performance out to here. Pagon will be our post-game interview here for the Jade Dragons, talking a little bit about it. So when I talked to Mike last week for the interview, you know, coming into this matchup, felt that Nika was going to be one of the big threats out for the team, but also said that maybe in those first couple of matchups didn't have the performance y'all were expecting. Did you kind of live up to maybe some of the changing expectations this week?
Yeah, I think so. We definitely have been having a lot of good scrims, and I think we showed that today. So these games are good performances, I think.
Yeah, and your next match is going to be up against the Camelot Kings. Do you have any kind of expectations going up against that team?
I think we'll win. You know, I think we'll do pretty good too.
Yeah, pretty much so out there. I mean, you guys look good here today in your 2-0 matchup, and obviously against the Kings. It's still going to be a tough performance. They've been taking all of their opponents to 3 out there. And kind of talking about the mid lane specifically, you kind of came in from the SCC, which is always known for these kind of wackier picks. You know, you never know what you're going to expect, especially out of the SCC mid laners. I mean, how does that kind of change coming up here into the SPL?
You definitely can't play as much things, I think. You got to stick to the good things, but you know, my team's open to let me pick weird things, and we're just rolling with it so far.
Yeah, rolling with some solid punches. Now, this is a question specifically before I let you go. This one's coming from Jithens, our guy behind production, and he wants to know, would you eat cereal with the Starbucks cold Frappuccino drink instead of milk?
Sure.
All right, well, there we go. There's your answer. I hope Jithens is satisfied. Pagon, congrats on your win. Thanks for coming by for the post-game interview.
Thank you.
All right, so Jithens got his answer. I had to throw Jithens under the bus because normally I wouldn't ask a question that silly out here, but we got that one. But Pagon feeling good and talking about, you know, when you're in the SCC, we saw it a lot. We see it all the time with the SCC. You get all these really, really wacky picks out there, but it usually just ends up working out. In the SPL, can't do it quite as much, but Pagon's able to make it work so far. Let's take a look, though, at the schedule for the remainder of our week to see what you missed out on today if you're just now tuning in. I'm sorry you missed all the action. It was a 2-0 for the Jade Dragons, a nice win here over the Oni Warriors, and you also may have missed the Camelot Kings getting their 2-1 over the Solar Scarabs to start our day. But have no fear, that's only day 1 of the SPL. We got day 2 coming up tomorrow. That'll be the Titans up against the Leviathans, and then the Valkyries and the Warriors to close out our second day of the SPL. And it's going to be our match of the week tomorrow, Charlie, on that very first set. The Titans and the Leviathans, a rematch of our World Championships.
Yeah, that one's going to be – we're all going to have to be watching that matchup for sure because you never really know right now. I say right when the matchup started, I was like, man, the Leviathans are looking so good, looking unstoppable just like last year. And then as you mentioned, the Oni Warriors proved that they can bleed. The Tartarus Titans, though, they have yet to take a fall. Obviously, only 1 game in right now. It's going to be an interesting one to have to see if the Leviathans are able to make those adjustments or if the Tartarus Titans are just looking unstoppable this year.
Yeah, I mean, the Titans got the 2-0 last week up against the Dragons, and now we have the Leviathans who have their 1-1 split. That one loss being over to the side of the Oni Warriors. But, as I said, that's all that we have here on the SPL for today. Make sure that you're tuning back in tomorrow, 1 p.m. if you want to catch the SPL. Otherwise, we'll be starting the SCC same time as usual, 11 a.m. over here on twitch.tv/SmiteGame on behalf of myself, Charlie, the rest of the cast of production, everyone behind the scenes. Thank you for watching. We'll see you all tomorrow.